Season 8, Week 2 of the 2024 Dana White's Contender Series is going down tonight. We got 5 big-time matchups with 10 guys hopeful for UFC contracts, putting it out all on the line tonight in some interesting matchups varying across multiple weight classes. Let's get into it right now in this video, starting with the first fight on the card. Billy Brand versus Cody Haddon. Two guys that have suffered one loss apiece to two really highly touted UFC fighters. Billy Brand has one loss to Peyton Talbot on the regional scene. Cody Haddon on the regional scene in Australia, Eternal MMA, has one loss to the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Erceg. Both of these guys, since their losses, have proved to be really impressive outside of those fights. They had good fights with those guys, competitive matchups with those guys, but just fell short in the end and have since gone on to put on a couple of great performances. Billy Brand looks really fun on the feet, very creative. Obviously got caught by Peyton Talbot, lost the fight, but is always looking for creating fun atmospheres in fights. He's always going for some kind of spinning attack. The guy comes to sling it. He has no fear on the feet. He goes for everything and anything he can get, no matter what. Cody Haddon is a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Nothing too flashy. He's just a really solid fighter all around. He'll be fighting at the 135-pound division. This is a bantamweight matchup, bantamweight prospects, bantamweight hopefuls. Listen, I'm looking at Billy Brand here. I just think he has more potential overall in terms of being an exciting fighter, but I fear that Cody Haddon probably might have his number tonight. He's just a better fighter. He makes less silly decisions, goes for less compromising positions, less compromising strikes if they miss. I'm going to go with Cody Haddon in this one if I had to take a personal pick, but Billy Brand is definitely, in my opinion, the more dangerous fighter. He can get in on the legs when he has to, so look for this matchup to be scrappy, be a quick finish for either one of the guys. It's out there, it's possible, but ultimately will likely go to decision. This one's going to be a fun one to kick off the card. On to the next one. We got Cam Rouston, also fighting out of Australia. He is 8-2, his record coming into this fight, and Torres Finney, the guy, the chunk master, the block, the wrecking ball himself, competed last season on Dana White's Contender Series, got a finish, but Dana White said that he just wasn't quite ready for the UFC. I'm not so sure how true that really is. There's other guys in the welterweight, middleweight division. I believe he fights in the middleweight division. Yes, it says it right here. He fights in the middleweight division. There's guys in the middleweight division that this guy could take on and compete really well against. Dana said, hey man, hey young buck, hey young man, you need to get a couple of fights under your belt before you come back. He fought one time, got a finish, like, oh well, okay. The guy is just an absolute wrecking ball. Great grappling, just a strong, stocky, short guy. Think of him with the build of like a Michael Chandler, just an absolute wrecking ball, short, muscly guy. He uses his takedowns. He's got heavy hands, heavy ground and pound, and he's got some ability to get submissions, although I tend to see as the competition rises for him, he's going to become more of a ground and pound wrestling type of guy who can get it going on the feet for a little bit at a time, just to keep the fight going, to keep it in his wheelhouse. That's always a good sign. That means that he has ability. Absolutely. Cam Rouston is really tall for the division. He fights long. He fights smart most of the time. Lots of knees up the middle in the clinch. This is a kind of guy that could take out Torres Finney. I don't think that he is as good or has the best prospects compared to Torres. I think Torres Finney, in the long haul, over the long course of their careers, both of these guys, Torres Finney will become more successful. But Cameron Rouston is a good matchup for this kind of guy because he's so tall. He can throw those knees up the middle. He can jab at range and keep Torres backed up. Not back him up against the cage, but stay on the outside, keep that footwork going, jab at range, teep at range, and throw some elbows whenever Torres tries to get into the clinch because his elbow strikes are going to be really long. But Torres has really long arms. He's got a great long reach, and he can get on these takedowns a lot easier than you would think based on his height. On to the next. Cortavius Romeus versus Michael Imperato. Two guys that I'm not so sure really belong here. Cortavius is really, really fun to watch. He's kind of just a scrapper. He's got great jiu-jitsu, good finishing instincts on the ground. Michael Imperato, an absolute jiu-jitsu ace. He's got some of the best grappling that we've seen coming into the Contender Series. Really, really impressive. Just a jiu-jitsu specialist, but he is 34 years old. And you might ask, if he gets a submission, should they even let him in? In my opinion, no, not at all. I don't think this is really going to be worth it. But here's the thing. I bet this is kind of a showcase bout for Romeus and Imperato. 135-pound division, the bantamweights. I could see them signing him for some reason. I don't really understand. I don't know. They always say, Dana always says in the post-fight interview with Lorisenko that he's not looking for guys that are older than 30. Why do you guys pick Michael Imperato to be on the Contender Series? What if he gets a win? Is that not then just a waste of space? I don't know. I'll let you decide. I don't know what the heck they're going with that. Anyway, I hope that Romeus wins. I think he's got more prospects as a contender. He could do something. He could develop, get better. Michael Imperato, on the other hand, not sure what he's doing. Romeus usually fights in the lightweight division. It's interesting to see that he's going to be fighting at the 135-pound division, both of them. At least so it says on Tapology. We'll see what happens in the fight. It doesn't really matter. It's just two prospects coming in. They're going to be fun. They're going to be going for it. They're fighting for a contract in the UFC, and that's a big deal. On to the next co-main event. Big-time heavyweight matchup. Rizvan Kunaev versus Hugo Cunha. Hugo Cunha is one of these athletic heavyweights. He's not a jacked Cyril Gane type, but he just moves a lot better. He's more athletic than most of the heavyweights on the roster. And honestly, in terms of heavyweights, I just hope he smashes this Rizvan guy. Rizvan has shown that he's got this Dagestani style where he can smother you on the ground, but he's just a big old blob. He's lost a lot of weight. This was a big talking point last time he competed on the Contender Series. He put on a smothering clinic. Not very interesting, not very entertaining to watch. Hugo Cunha has looked really good on the come up. He's shown good submission ability. He's shown good striking ability. Not the best, again, he's a heavyweight, but he just moves better than most heavyweights out there. And honestly, I hope that he wins. I think he's going to get it done. Hopefully he can get up off the ground. Rizvan is really heavy on the ground, so I'm worried that he will smother Hugo. But if he smothers him, I don't think he's going to do anything impressive to get a win, to get a contract. So let's hope Cunha wins. Let's get a less flabby, more athletic heavyweight in the mix out of the heavyweight division. On to the main event. Pat Pitlick versus Andreas Gustafsson. My God, what a main event here. If you know anything about either of these guys, you know that they're both dangerous and they both like to strike and scrap on the feet. Pat is the better technician, has a Muay Thai background, really, really fun on the feet, throws great, beautiful combos. He loves to get his Thai boxing going in the fights. Not the fastest starter. Andreas, on the other hand, is an absolute blitzkrieg in the first minute of the fight. He has multiple first-round finishes. He comes heavy in the first exchange, but he uses that heavy, crazy on the feet, and it's chaotic, and it just creates so many problems in the opening minute of the fight, which then lets him get in on the legs, get a takedown, and put it down on the ground. He's brutal on the ground. He's always going for finishes. These guys are both on the older side. I think Pat is like 32 or 33, and Andreas is about 34 years old. Two older guys, but honestly, Gustafsson is so much fun. I wouldn't mind if he blitzes Pat, gets into the UFC, and just has a couple of fun matchups. I'd much rather see him fight than like a Johan Lainus out of Canada. Other guys along those lines that just aren't that interesting to watch, aren't that entertaining ultimately. Gustafsson, no matter who he's fighting, whether they're way better than him or just not up to his standard of competition, this guy always brings it, always puts on a great performance. He's had a couple of really, really fun fights. If you go on UFC Fight Pass, look up the guy, watch a couple of the fights on there. They're absolute barn burners of matchups. He does not care about getting hit. He will take a shot to give a shot. He's heavy in the first minute, gets in on the grappling, crazy ground and pound, good submission ability. He's just an overall well-rounded, fun fighter. This guy is the epitome of scrapper. In the dictionary, the words scrapper or warrior The guy is just an absolute gladiator, and his image would be next to any of those words if it were in the dictionary. Pat Pitlick has really, really solid technical ability on the feet with his Thai boxing. I expect that he could get it done if he keeps it clean, keeps his footwork going, backs up, plays it smart, doesn't get taken down, stands up, stays up. I think he can beat Gustafsson. Gustafsson tends to kind of burn himself out, but he just always goes for it. He kind of reminds me of a Dwcs. He's just always swinging on the feet no matter what. And he has really, really solid takedown ability and good submission accuracy. So that's it for the card. Expect a couple of these matchups to not necessarily produce the best prospects, but some of the fights will be fun. I think the co-main event has a potential to be a stinker. The main event is can't miss, and the opening fight is going to be really, really fun against two guys who have lost fights. Yes, they have ones on their records, no O's in the first fight of the card, but they've lost to some of the top tier talent we've seen in the UFC as of late. Torres Finney, big time memer coming up. Excited to see him fight. He's a wrecking ball. He's got potential. He's a young guy. Let's see him get the win. I hope he gets the win. And then Romeus hopefully gets the win over Imperato, who's dangerous on the ground, but ultimately too old for me to be selecting in the Dana White Contender Series. I will see you after the fights.